Hello, we are back to be reading The Absorbant Mind by Maria Montessori. And we are in the chapter called The Effect of Obstacles on Development. It is often we who obstruct the child, and so become responsible for anomalies that last a lifetime. Always must our treatment be as gentle as possible, avoiding violence, for we easily fail to realize how violent and hard we are being. We have to watch ourselves most carefully. The real preparation for education is a study of one's self. The training of the teacher who is to help life is something far more than a learning of ideas. It includes the training of character. It is a preparation of the spirit. I think that's what has especially inspired me to follow the teachings of Montessori, is that real emphasis on you have to be able to understand yourself to have the most complete compassion for these little beings. And I feel like that's something that's not really taught in mainstream education, that it is really you who is this great guide for these new people, and it's so important to understand the responsibility of that. Children have many kinds of sensitiveness, but they are all alike in their sensitiveness to trauma. How easy it is to wound them, yet they feel just as keenly the adult's coldness and ruthless calm. Now, darling, remember what Mummy told you. Parents who are still in the habit of leaving their children to a nanny should be especially cautious of the coldly authoritarian manner in which the nanny so often speaks. I don't, so don't worry. It is often to this that the upper class people owe their troubles, when, although they have plenty of physical courage, they are timid in speech, hesitate or stammer. I have myself sometimes been too severe with a child, and the following example appears in one of my other books. A child had put his outdoor shoes on the beautiful silk cover of his bed. I removed them in a somewhat determined manner and brushed the cover energetically with my hand to show him that this was no place in which to leave one's shoes. For 2 or 3 months, whenever the child saw a pair of shoes, he first put them somewhere else, then looked for a cover or a cushion that he could dust. In other words, the response to my overdone lesson was not that of a resentful or rebellious spirit. The child did not say, "Don't treat me like that, I shall put my shoes where I like." But his reaction to my faulty conduct was an abnormality of behavior. It often happens that children do not react violently. It might be better if they did, because the child who gets angry has discovered how to defend himself and may then develop normally. It might be better if the child did react violently, because then they have discovered how to defend themselves and may develop normally. I was having a conversation actually with my psychiatrist this morning about how whenever I felt neglected or alone or ignored as a child, it felt very difficult to say anything or question it or try to defend myself. And one of the children that I'm looking after at the moment, has no problem expressing herself when she feels like we don't want to be with her, or she feels alone, or that we're prioritizing something other than her. She defends herself, and I actually really respect that, and it makes me look at how I can share myself better with her and the other things that I'm doing, try to include her in everything that I have to do besides just looking after them, like helping around the house or whatever. So it is better, I think, to be able to express the feelings that you have at that moment, that she does. So yeah. When the child replies by a change of character or by taking refuge in abnormality, his whole life has then been changed. His whole life has then been damaged. Not changed, sorry. But yes, changed too. Adults are unaware of this, and I think there is nothing to worry about unless the child gets angry. And think there is nothing to worry about. So they think that the abnormal activities aren't worrisome, but only aggressive actions are things that need to be worried about. Another group of anomalies found among grown-ups takes the form of senseless fears and tics. Most of these can also be traced to violence done to the little child's extreme sensitivity. Some reflect unfortunate experiences with animals, such as cats or chickens. Others originate with the child's fright at being locked in a room. Neither reasoning nor persuasion can help the victims of these fears, which are known to medicine as phobias. Some are so common as to have special names. For example, claustrophobia, the fear of locked doors or of closed-in spaces. Many more cases could be cited from medical experience, but I mention these just to show the child's kind of mentality at this age, and to insist that all our handling of him will bear fruit, not only at the moment, but in the man he is destined to become. To understand the baby's mind, it is absolutely essential to take the path of observation and discovery. We have to do something like what is done by psychoanalysis when it reaches down to unconscious levels in the adult's mind. This is by no means easy, for our knowledge of baby talk is seldom sufficiently good, or we may fail to grasp the special implications which the child wants us to attach to his words. Sometimes we need to know the baby's whole life, or at least we must investigate his immediate past before we can pacify this tiny creature in the difficulty he is facing. How often do we long for an interpreter to tell us his meaning? I have worked for a long time on this myself, trying to make myself into the child's interpreter, and I have noted with surprise how, if you try to do this for them, they come running to look for you, as if understanding that here is someone who can help them. Children's affection for those who merely pet and caress them is not on the same plane with this high enthusiasm. The child's one hope lies in his interpreter. Here is someone who will unlock the garden of discovery to which the world has shut the door. The child's helper is admitted to an intimacy which exceeds affection, because help is a greater gift than consolation. In a house where I used to live, I had the habit of rising to start work very early in the morning. One day, a little boy, who cannot have been more than 1.5 years old, came into my room at that unheard of hour. I questioned him affectionately, wondering if he wanted something to eat. He answered, "Worms." Showing my surprise, I answered, "Worms? Worms?" Finding I did not understand, he tried to help me by adding another word, egg. I said to myself, it can't be the early morning drink he wants. Whatever can he mean? Then he said, "Nina, egg, worms." And I understood, because I remembered, and here I repeat how important it is to know the whole framework of the child's life. I remembered that on the day before, his sister, Nina, had been shading an egg-shaped outline with a coloured crayon. He had wanted the crayon, but she had become angry and sent him away. And now, see how the child's mind works. Instead of opposing his will to hers, he had waited for his opportunity, and with what constancy and patience to try again. I gave him a crayon and the oval-shaped outline, and his face lit up, but he couldn't draw the egg-shaped outline by himself, so I helped him to do it. Then he began to shade it with wavy lines. His sister had done it with the usual straight lines, but he had a better idea and used wavy lines, like worms. So this baby had waited till all were asleep in the house, except his interpreter, and had then gone to her, confident that she would help. I really like that story. Just gotta understand and investigate a little bit more when you don't understand someone, what they're trying to say. Not anger and violence, but patience marks this period in children's lives. The patience to wait for the right moment. It is when the child cannot express himself, he finds inner obstacles to his wish, that he shows violence and rage, that people call tantrums. The above example also shows how these tiny tots try to behave like older children. If a child of 3 starts on a piece of work, the little one of 1.5 years will want to do it as well. He may find it difficult, but he tries. A baby boy in our house wanted to imitate his sister of 3, who was learning the steps of a new dance. The teacher had already asked us how she could be expected to teach the steps of ballet to such a tiny girl. We begged her not to worry about how much the child learned, but just to try. Knowing that our idea was to help the child in her development, the teacher condescended to do this and began. At once, the little boy of 1.5 years ran forward, crying, "Me too." At this, the teacher took a definite stand, protesting that it was absolutely impossible and contrary to her dignity as a teacher of ballet to take on anyone so young. However, we persuaded her to pocket her pride and to humour us in our whim. So she sat down to play some music. Immediately, the baby flew into a rage and refused to move. To this, the ballet teacher thought confirmed her opinion. But he was not worrying about the dance. The cause of his rage lay in the teacher's hat, which was lying on the sofa. Without saying either hat or teacher, he repeated 2 words with concentrated fury. They were hall and peg. What he meant was, this hat is all wrong here. It should be on a peg in the hall. All his pleasure in the dance was forgotten, as if he felt a paramount call to bring order out of confusion. Directly the hat was placed on the peg, his temper cooled and he got ready to dance. It seems clear that the tiny child's basic need for order takes priority over all other social claims that the world may make upon him. The study of words and of children's sensitivity enables us to penetrate to a depth into their souls seldom reached by psychologists. I'll read that again. I don't feel like I read that well. The study of words and of children's sensitivity enables us to penetrate to a depth in their souls seldom reached by psychologists. I think that's a good sentence to end it on. Yeah. Study words and sensitivity. Penetrate to the depths of the soul. Thank you very much. Lots of love. Good night.